Morning, everyone. Doing a microphone check. That seems good. All right. Are we good to go? Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Instagram, all systems go. We have volume. Let me get your comments up here. Let's make sure I'm good on this screen on Instagram. I think that's it. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to December 17, 2024, episode 315. Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for medium and small businesses on the planet. I was just listening to someone else's economic and trading show as I was logging in here, and looks like Nvidia may be entering into a correction. The CEO of Microsoft, and when I looked logging in, Nvidia was down, down about 4 or 5% this morning. The CEO of Microsoft a couple of days ago now was on a podcast and said that we have plenty of chips. We don't need any more chips. We got lots of chips from Nvidia for AI. What we need is power to fuel them, he said, which means nuclear energy. Remember we discussed on this show, I don't give you financial advice, but if you're looking for the next bubble, it's going to be energy, nuclear, in particular, and infrastructure to transport that energy. And there's just a story every day about nuclear energy needs. And so Microsoft says they have plenty of chips, which is going to maybe burst that bubble at Nvidia. But who knows? There's lots of customers in the world. I think they said in their last earnings call that 13 or some large percent of the revenue just came from one customer entirely. Get fluff off of my shirt here for you. Anyways, there you go. Bitcoin hit 108,000 last night, or today. So as I'm talking here, this is never Siri, go away. I've got Siri popping up on all of my screens here, distracting me as I'm trying to talk. Okay, so Bitcoin hit 108,000 last night. I did some coverage on Bitcoin yesterday, and it certainly got some people upset with me. So to remind you of my position, you don't need to go back and listen to the show, but I'm very bullish on Bitcoin in the short term. I'm bullish on Bitcoin in the midterm. However, we might want to define that. And the investment thesis behind being bullish, behind wanting to own Bitcoin. And I should disclose to you, by the way, that I've been buying calls on Bitcoin since those products have been. Norm Nicholson on YouTube looks like Ding Dong the Witch is dead, and the curtains are about to be fully pulled back to reveal to us all a naked king. Yeah, well, we're going to get there, Norm. Let me just finish on my Bitcoin rant here. And so I've been buying calls, and I've been up. I mean, I haven't done the math, but probably 50%. Because there's leverage every like 6 to 8 weeks, somewhere in that range, maybe a shorter period of time. I mean, I'm loving this Bitcoin rally, which is why I get on here every day and go, woo, Bitcoin hit 108,000 last night. That's pretty good. But I also told you that in the long term, from a financial point of view, there's pretty much no chance that Bitcoin isn't going to go to zero at some point. Now, is that a year from now? No. Is it 20 years from now? Maybe. I mean, nobody can tell you how long that's going to be. But here's a fact. And unless these facts change, there is no utility to Bitcoin. And utility is defined in economic terms usually by, can you pay your taxes with this damn thing? And you cannot pay your taxes with that thing, although some tax jurisdictions are starting to play with that. And if they do, it creates a utility. And that's very interesting and may have some long-term prospects for Bitcoin. So yesterday I read an article, as I do, for the Wall Street Journal, talking about Buffett and Jamie Dimon and all of these billionaire investors and how they're so negative in the big picture on Bitcoin. As I just said, very bullish short term, making lots of money on Bitcoin short term. Well, that pissed off some crypto people, no doubt about that. Now on this show, I get I get a few comments in the like Norm just did on YouTube live. I get them afterwards in the stream, but mostly what I get is lots of comments to me directly. I get them by email. I get them by info at if they go to thescottsinclair.com or sinclairrange.com or just DM. That's how most people get a hold of me when they want to comment on the show, presumably because they don't want to be out in the open. And if it's a good comment, yeah, you got that right, Scott. It's always in. If you're listening on YouTube, it goes on YouTube. If you're listening on X or LinkedIn, it goes on there. But if you want to disagree with me, if you think that I've got something wrong, you think I got a bad take, you have a different opinion, you want to debate, people do that, it seems, by DM or email. So everybody does it that way, which I love, by the way. You can say whatever you want in the comments. I don't really care. I love that you're listening. I mean, the whole point of doing a live stream is get some attention, create some thought. And I'm on here every single morning talking off the top of my head. And so I'm probably going to get a lot of shit wrong, and people should be debating and calling me out on that. I'm totally good with that. But I pissed off some crypto people yesterday, and one of them in particular. Now, I would not normally call somebody out for a comment, but this fellow thought that on LinkedIn, which is more of a professional environment, that he should just publicly make a comment. And this fellow is Adam Temple, CEO of Evolve Distraction Solutions. That's from the cannabis industry. He says, Scott, when you discuss things that you've never done any research on, in this case, Bitcoin, you make a fool of yourself. You a fool. Doesn't say that. That was my interpretation. Anyone who spent time researching can tell you you haven't done the work yourself, and you're simply parroting other skeptics that have already been thoroughly proven wrong. Thank you for that, Adam. So here's a question for you. Do I need to research Bitcoin? Does anyone need to research Bitcoin? It's not really brain surgery, right? I mean, we all know what Bitcoin is at this point. Hi, Abby Sting, however I pronounce your username on Instagram. Thank you for joining us. I don't think I need to research Bitcoin. I get it, but it's not brain surgery. I understand that it's a dream for some people. I understand that it's a religion of sorts. I understand that it's a statement against the authority, against globalism, against just disintegration of norms on a global scale. And Bitcoin is a flight to safety on that. Always be broke on YouTube. On X, isn't the point of Bitcoin to be secretive and discreet? How much research can one really do? I want to say cult, not a religion. Yeah, so I get all that, and I don't mean that in a negative way. There's a lot of passion behind it, and that's great. But it doesn't change the fact. It doesn't change the economic fact that Bitcoin has, air quotes, value because it has demand. That's it. There is no utility economically defined by you can't pay your taxes. There are no cash flow. You're not going to get a dividend. There's no cash flow coming out of this. And value is defined by the cash in the future after tax that you can put into your pocket. Is discounted for risk, is discounted for time. That is literally the financial definition of value. Bitcoin doesn't offer that. Bitcoin, you might make money by it going up, and you will lose money by it going down. That's it. Why does it go up? It goes up because there's a demand. People are buying it. Why does it go down? Because people sold it. It is that simple. There is no other explanation for any of this. This does not require a lot of research. Everybody can understand it. I explained it to my mother last week, who's 83 years old, and she understood it. Like, this is just not difficult to grasp. So until something changes, until you can pay your taxes, until it has some sort of utility to it, it's always just going to be a speculative bet. You are betting on demand, and you're betting that the cult, as Always Be Broke on YouTube, on X has just called it, you're betting that that cult continues and continues to grow, and therefore the value will go up because there is no more supply of Bitcoin. And I'm betting, when I'm buying calls, I'm betting that there's a trend that institutions and the real money, beyond the real retail investor, beyond the cult, as Always Be Broke has called it, probably accurately so. But I'm betting that the institutions are going to want some of that as an asset class. So Bitcoin is an asset class, and they're going to pour into this. And who knows? Maybe it's going to go from 108,000 to a million. Like, it could go up a lot. And I think that's the trend. And I'm betting on that. But let's not kid ourselves. It's a bet. It's nothing else. There is no value play here. It's 100% a bet, and that is the math on it. So there's nothing to research. And you, Adam, Mr. CEO of Evolve Distraction Solutions, who wants to post stuff on LinkedIn, you've commented and provided no value to this conversation. Just like Bitcoin, you've provided no value to this conversation whatsoever. Listen, folks, when you fuck Adam, it says here in the comments, when you leave a comment on social media, again, I love the debate. I'm going to be wrong. I'm sitting here every morning live saying things like there's going to be things that are definitely wrong, that I'm off base. Maybe you think about things differently. I love that. That's frankly what the point of the live stream is all about. But if you're just going to tell me that I'm a fool and I haven't done my research, well, you're just being an asshole. That's all that's going on there. You're not adding any value. But Adam, seriously, thanks for watching. And if you want to comment again, just tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me what your hypothesis is, what your investment thesis is. Then we can have a real discussion. In fact, come on the show. I'll bring you on the show as a guest, and you can tell me what your research told you, the research that I failed to do. Hey, has anything, did anything happen in Canadian politics yesterday? I missed that. I'm kidding. I didn't miss it. I watched CBC all day, like literally all day. And I haven't watched CBC in 15 years. Not 1 minute of it. Yesterday, I put it on. I watched it all day. I couldn't get enough. According to the Globe and Mail. Well, not according to the Globe and Mail, according to everybody, but from the Globe and Mail, Chrystia Freeland abruptly resigned as finance minister and deputy prime minister on Monday morning. So I know that more than half my audience is American. What do you care? Well, this is like the vice president, but also the vice president with another relevant portfolio as a cabinet minister. This is a powerful person. And Chrystia Freeland, I might remind you, is the person that led the negotiations for the last U.S. Canadian Mexican trade deal from Canada's perspective. And she's the one I will never forget who tells us, hey, Canada won that negotiation because we lost less than I thought we were going to lose. She must be, I feel like she's the second most incompetent person on the face of the earth. Only trumped, if I can use that word, only beaten by Trudeau. So Ms. Freeland informed Prime Minister about the Prime Minister about her resignation just before he was to meet his cabinet. She had been set to deliver the fall fiscal and economic update in the House of Commons in the afternoon. The blueprint revealed that Ottawa missed its deficit target of $40.1 billion by more than $20 billion. So again, for my U.S. friends, we do a budget, I think, once a year, but then there's this fall, and I think, when is that? You guys on the comments will know, but I think it's in February. And but we do a fall economic update. Hey, here's how we're going, and here's kind of where we want to head in 2025. Well, she's to deliver this in about 2 hours before she was supposed to deliver it. She just bailed. She bailed on the whole thing. Globe and Mail reported last week that there were rising tensions between Ms. Freeland and Mr. Trudeau in his office over spending efforts to recruit and his efforts to recruit central banker Mark Carney. Remember, I've told you on this show that my suspicion is that they're going to hot swap Trudeau. Trudeau will be out because you can do that in Canadian politics. You can just say, I'm out. This guy's in. This guy being Mark Carney, who was the former head of the Bank of Canada and then the Bank of the UK, whatever I'm having a mental block, but whatever the proper term for that is. I think he was the only Bank of England. He was the only non-British citizen in centuries, I believe, to take over that role at the Bank of England. So this guy is Carney's a fantastic banker. I don't know how he would be as leader. I suspect that's not going to go well, mostly because of the elitism issue. And I don't say elitism in a negative way. I just think that Canadians are pretty common sense folk, and they don't like some big banker from Bay Street wandering in and taking over the country. That's not going to go very well. They also don't like academics. We had a guy in the Liberal Party that came from Harvard before, and he got wiped out in a similar situation. So Ms. Freeland sent a letter to the Prime Minister that she was resigning after he informed her on Friday that he no longer wanted her to be his top economic minister. A source said Mr. Trudeau spoke to Freeland in a Zoom call. I remind you, these people don't work from home. Now, maybe they're traveling on business or doing different things, but, they basically work. She's the deputy prime minister. I think they have an office that they sort of jointly share. I literally, I don't know what's going on here, but instead he does this by Zoom call and offered her a cabinet portfolio on Canada-U.S. relations, as if she should be the one in charge of U.S. relations with her Trump hatred and the failure of last time. But that's what he offered her, but without a ministry. So it's like a cabinet, but without a portfolio. Like there's just nothing to do, no staff. I'm sure there would be some staff, but not a big bureaucracy underneath her. And the source said she regarded the office as a demotion. No doubt the Globe is not identifying the source. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Like Trudeau is such a wuss. He's just such a wuss. For our businesses, if you have somebody critical and well, first of all, just to be human. And also, if you need this person and their goodwill going forward, you don't fire people or demote people by Zoom. Like, get in front of them face to face, particularly if you're in the same city. Like, I may end up doing it. I live in the middle of nowhere on the West Coast. I have employees all over the world, mostly in the East, though. And so I may end up in that situation because I just can't get on a flight and take 2 days of travel to go and have a chat with somebody who needs that sort of treatment. But, you need to try and get in front of people. And I don't know, do you think yesterday, where this is heading, by the way, is the whole government's going to crater over this. That's my bet. And do you think yesterday would have gone any differently if he just sat down with her, talked out their differences, explained his issues instead of the political backstabbing? I think yesterday would have gone very different. I think this was a mistake. I think that doing this by Zoom was a mistake that's going to kill the government. Always be broke. In her defense, I just learned who she was. What leverage did she have on the U.S. in that initial NAFTA? What would you have done differently? How do you negotiate on the other side of a giant like Trump? Well, I'm going to tell you exactly the answer to that. Always be broke, because this is all about a negotiation. Globe and Mail continues with the Chrystia Freeland letter. Upon reflection, I have concluded that the only honest and viable path is for me to resign from the cabinet. She said in a letter to Mr. Trudeau that she posted online. To be effective, a minister must speak on behalf of the Prime Minister and with his full confidence. In making your decision, you made clear that I could no longer credibly enjoy the confidence of you, blah, 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 blah. So, Globe and Mail reported last week, citing 10 sources, that tensions have been rising between Freeland and the Prime Minister's office over increased spending, a 2-month VAT tax, GST tax holiday on toys, alcohol, and food, except there was no GST on food. It's really GST on chips and junk and stuff like that. That's just to give us Canadians a little break when it comes to, little temporary break when it comes to food inflation, although again, it's not real food. And for all you small business point of sale people, you had to reconfigure your entire point of sale system to not automatically put tax on. So it costs you thousands of dollars per business to reconfigure your point of sale for this little gimmick. Freeland says the country faces a grave challenge, particularly from U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. He's promising to impose tariffs of 25% on all imports from Canada unless there's firm action taken to control the borders to stop illicit drugs such as opioids flowing into the United States. Freeland says the government needs to keep its spending under control. to be able to effectively deal with the incoming Trump administration. True, that might be the first intelligent thing I've ever heard her say. In an apparent swipe at the GST tax holiday, this is on the chips and alcohol, seen by her own department as economically unwise. In other words, Trudeau was pushing this on her as a gimmick. And she says, quote, "We need to take the threat extremely seriously. That means keeping our fiscal powder dry today so we have the reserves we may need for a coming tariff war." End quote. She goes on to say that means eschewing, getting rid of costly political gimmicks this is the GST rebate, that we can ill afford, and which make Canadians doubt that we recognize the gravity of the moment. So in recent days, everybody speculated that Carney, again, the head of the Bank of Canada, formerly, that everybody loves so much, was going to come into the finance minister role, but now that's not happening, and he appointed someone else. In fact, she resigned. She wasn't going to read the fall economic update. She said, "I want nothing to do with this crap." And so they have a deputy finance minister, right? This is like you have a cabinet minister in the US, and then you've got somebody underneath that who just automatically in law steps up and takes that position. And so according to the reporting yesterday, she bailed. So now it's up to the next guy to step up and do this fall economic update. But he said, "Oh, no, not me. I'm out on this." So they skipped him and they went to apparently now there's two roles underneath that, and they didn't do it either. So Trudeau ended up having to appoint Dominic LeBlanc, who's basically a longtime ally of Trudeau. So he's now the finance minister, and the economic update was released. Such failed leadership. Two huge mistakes. Number one is, I think this Zoom, you're going to get you're going to be demoted, but I'm going to put you through the humiliation of actually reading and going through and introducing this fall economic update. When in fact, I know that you don't, that you won't agree with it. So I'm going to force you to do that anyways and demote you. And I'm going to do that all by Zoom because I don't have the cojones to sit in front of you because you kind of scare me a little bit and tell you this face to face and work out a transition plan, which, by the way, he tells her by Zoom that she has to step down. There's going to be a transition, but clearly there was no one to transition to. How do we know? Because no one stepped up to take the job. It took them all day, like literally all day and into the evening, to come up with the guy that they appointed, who it seems to be just a placeholder. And I don't think that LeBlanc is really a guy of substance. I don't know, but I don't think he doesn't seem to me to be a guy of significant substance. And so he had no plan. And so this is what happens. This is what I call negative momentum. You know, I'm selling you are providing a business course, and it's in 8 modules, and it's how to raise business capital and earn more business profit. And you need to earn business profit to raise business capital, and vice versa. And one of the modules, module 3, just released, is on momentum. And the idea is that if you can create winning momentum, you can attract resources, both human, people want to come work for you, and financial money will come to you. And negative momentum is equally powerful. Who the hell wants to work for you when the ship is going underwater? When the ship's going underwater. So he had no one to work for him. There's no leadership. There's no thought. There's no managed transition. It's completely mishandled. And then out comes the fall economic statement, which, as I already told you, says that it was supposed to be a $40 billion deficit, but it's more than a $60 billion deficit. And Andrew Coyne, the Canadian journalist who also writes, I think, for the Wall Street Journal, who I've picked on this show just because I think that he's a terrible Trump hater who gets everything wrong. But it turns out he's a hater of everything, and including the Liberal government here in Canada. So he posts on X yesterday, now hearing that the fall economic update, the FES, I'm not sure what the acronym is there, but this is the same thing that we're talking about, has been tabled. After all, deficit $62 billion. an overrun of more than 50% over what we were told it would be just 8 months ago. Just utterly out of control. 48 billion for the current fiscal year, but that projection is as worthless as the last one. It's 8 billion over the budget projection, but it could be 30 billion over by the time the numbers are all in. The truth is, we don't really know how much the deficit is anymore. Let me repeat that. We don't really know, says Andrew Coyne, how much the deficit is anymore, not even to the nearest 20 billion. The government has lost control of the company's finances as earlier it lost control of immigration. And it will soon lose control of the caucus. So look, I've called on Andrew Coyne before. I'm going to call him out on the plus side. I think you're dead on with this one. And Norm, thanks for chipping in with fall economic statement is the FES. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Thank you for that. So what else we got on the comments here? Always be broke. How do you negotiate on the side of a giant like Trump? We're going to talk about that in a minute. Hey, HYYC. Thanks for joining us on Instagram, and Stacey Arson, if I pronounce that properly. Would Carney jump on his sinking ship? Well, exactly. That's exactly what happened. They say, oh, well, Carney's not going to join. Of course he's not going to join. There is no transition that makes any sense. And there was somebody else, I think it was Trudeau or somebody from the PMO office said, well, the only job Carney would take is the job of finance minister. Well, that's not true. He would take prime minister. That's the issue. He doesn't want to work. Who would want to work for Trudeau at this point with the negative momentum? So the hypothesis here, or the statement that I put forward, is Trump cratered the Canadian government. Well, how is that? It's amazing to me how he negotiates by first manufacturing a bargaining chip out of thin air. Just manufactures a bargaining chip, and it is part of a negotiation strategy that we should all learn for the business. In this case, his bargaining chip was the tariff, the 25% tariff. And is that to get less illegal immigration from the northern border? Is it to get less opioids? Sure, he would like that. But what he really wants, and by the way, how do I know? Because he tells us what he really wants is a better deal. It's just a better deal. That's what he's promised the American public, and that's what he should be doing. He should be getting a better deal, and he's just manufactured this bargaining chip, and instead of us fighting back with our own tariff threats, targeting, Canadians are going to lose to the U.S. in a tariff war. I mean, the U.S. is 10 times our size, and the GDP is more than 10 times our size. We will ultimately lose, but we can wipe out Wisconsin. We can wipe out Michigan. We can certainly have some leverage. And what we should be doing is fixing our border, because that's what a good neighbor does. Not because of a threat of tariffs, but we should be fixing our border. If we're creating opioids and fentanyl in a manufacturing plant down the road from me in BC, hidden in a field of whatever else, probably weed, if that's what we're doing, then we should stop that, because that's what a good neighbor does. We are so integrated as countries in an economy, but let's not forget the U.S., we are their number one supplier, and we are their number one customer. We're the number one supplier and the number one customer. We have leverage. He manufactured an asset out of thin air, and I said to myself, and I said on this show, this is no problem. We just need to do the same thing, and then we can bargain our way our manufactured assets out of thin air, the bargaining chips. And when we do that, we can just get down to business and create a deal that works for everybody. But we're not doing that. It's amazing how that works. He instead, we're just running around like chickens with our head cut off. There was there was 10 premiers yesterday, I think, lined up. I saw on a screen on CBC, and they all came together and they said they agreed on an action plan to fight the U.S. in this negotiation. Well, that was awesome. And Premier Ford, who I normally don't have any taste for whatsoever, I thought he did a great job from the speech that I heard in the middle. in this particular instance. But the problem is they have zero power. They can't affect anything on their own. Maybe they could have some provincial tariffs to the U.S. I don't know, to a particular state, but they have zero power. They don't have a federal government backing them up. And so it's amazing how the manufactured bargaining chip, this 25%, works. And it works in part because of the trust. So I've got an ATMOG negotiation strategy. You go back. We don't have time to cover it right now. I'll cover it in future episodes. But the T in that is trust, because the M could be is manufactured bargaining chips. But if you don't believe that if you don't trust that he's going to put the tariffs on you and try to crush you if you don't do what he's going to do, then it's not an effective bargaining chip. He has to trust that. So all of you that think he's just a madman, is that on purpose, or is that because he's a madman? It's on purpose, I would suggest to you, because he thinks ahead and he knows what the bargaining chip's going to be that has been manufactured, and he knows that he needs to posture to make you believe that that's real. And oh my goodness, does that work? Does that work? It's an unbelievable negotiation. Learn from that for our business. Here's another example, and I'm just going to wrap this up quickly because I'm way over time. Thank you for sticking in with me. Let me just check my comments on Instagram. Trump and SoftBank CEO unveil $100 billion investment in the U.S. yesterday. This is from the Wall Street Journal. And again, I'm just going to crank through this quickly, but reinforce the same point. Donald Trump and SoftBank CEO, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, Masayoshi Son, jointly announced Monday that SoftBank, which is a Japanese internet and telecommunications company, will be investing $100 billion in U.S. projects over the next 4 years as the president-elect seeks to project enthusiasm on his return to power. They did a press conference from Mar-a-Lago yesterday, and the SoftBank CEO announced this $100 billion investment into the U.S. and the 100,000 jobs, to which Trump replied during the press conference, hey, could you make it 200 billion? Could you make 200 billion instead of 100 billion? So the CEO, Son, was laughing and quipped, he's a great negotiator. He says, all right, I will try to make it 200. Would you get that out of Biden? Would you get that out of Trudeau? I don't think so. The commitment is a boon, according to the Wall Street Journal, for the incoming Republican president, who made a rejuvenated economy centerpiece of his presidential campaign, and said that he's prepared to move more swiftly on his agenda upon taking office next month. So last week, here's the point. Last week, Trump said, hey, any company that wants to invest $1 billion or more in the U.S. would receive fast-track permitting. So again, trust and a manufactured. So what does this mean? Everybody knows there's so much regulation in the U.S., nobody can build anything. There is no way to build infrastructure. Think of the high-speed rail in California, the bullet train, quote unquote. Think of the billions of dollars spent on roughly 39 car charging stations and that program. Literally billions of dollars spent, and nobody can put up I literally think it's 39 car stations, charging stations they put up. So there's this horrible problem in the U.S. of regulation. And what does Trump do? He makes an asset out of that, a bargaining chip, a manufactured bargaining chip. How does he do that? He says, here's an idea. If you invest $1 billion or more into the U.S. to create jobs and build your business here to avoid the tariffs, which I already manufactured out of thin air as a threat, as a bargaining chip, if you come in and spend $1 billion, you'll get a fast track on the regulations. I'll get you through. I'll skip all the regulations if you invest over $1 billion. It's like a concierge service for government. He takes a negative. Nobody can possibly do any business in the U.S. and spend billions of dollars in building chip plants. It's not going to work. And nuclear plants, it's not going to work because of the regulation. It takes forever, changes the payback period. It's going to really suck, except he turns it into an asset. He turns it into an asset by, well, you tell me you're going to spend a bunch of money and I'm just going to bypass all of that for you. And what's happening? People like SoftBank are coming to him and saying, yep, I'll spend $200 billion and create a bunch of jobs. Thank you for that. Brilliant. Why does it work? Trust, because they trust that he'll go crazy on the tariffs. So they want to be in the US. And they also trust that he has the ability and the wherewithal and the motivation to bypass the regulations and cut through the crap and get some business done. You need attention. That's the A in the ATMOG. He's got attention. You need trust. We talked about that. And he manufactured marketing chips. That would be the next step. And then you get into the other parts, the OG part of that, which we'll talk about on some other episode. All right. I'm way past time. I have not at all talked about the Kroger deal and the failed negotiation process. So we'll try to pick that up again tomorrow. Thank you for listening and participating. This has been awesome. This has been Mornings with Scott, the best damn business show for medium and small businesses on the planet. Manufactured bargaining chips. We'll see you tomorrow, 8:30 Mountain.